people. Welcome to the Hypno Lions Roar podcast. I have with me today Rose Guerra, and she is a past client. So I invited her on to kind of share her experience. Hey, Rose, how are you doing?
Doing good.
Good. So I brought you on today to kind of let everybody hear from your perspective of what hypnosis has done, why you looked at it, what brought you to hypnosis.
Well, when I came to starting hypnosis, I was really struggling with my mom life. Mainly my anger issues into my world of motherhood. That's where my struggle was. I had a lot of underlying problems, with my anger, my control of my emotions, and balancing that with having it not reflect towards my kids and my parenting towards them, and those crazy moments of discipline and that line of discipline and it being my personal issues showing towards them. So I was really struggling with that. I was just honestly, I was like at a breaking point of, it was just a constant carousel spin of the same thing over and over again, of everything breaking apart, lashing out, and having to fix the pieces afterwards all the time. So I was just in that constant struggle.
And had you tried any other therapies before?
No. Um, no, honestly, I had done counseling in the past, but not in that moment of the time that I was in of that issue. So I hadn't, done anything other than praying to God. I hadn't done anything else.
So when you were doing therapy or counseling before, had you thought about doing counseling for that, or was it something you looked at and just because of your experience, you just elected not to because for whatever reason?
It didn't even counseling kind of crossed my mind. I just felt like, okay, this is just what it is. This is my problems. I need to just, I need to just work through it. I knew I had to work through these things, but trying to find other options to get through them wasn't something I was, just crossing my mind. I wasn't looking for other ways. It thought it was just something, I had to just figure out. It was just part of parenting. It was part of my kids growing at their ages they were at, and being a single mom. I thought, that this is just what it is, how it's supposed to be. So I wasn't looking for outlets to fix the problem, but I knew there was a problem.
Okay. And what did you know anything about hypnosis prior to you
Mm,
going into hypnosis or doing hypnosis?
no, I mean, other than what you see in the movies,
Okay.
what they when they mention it, when they talk about it, they show it on the movies. Uh, I can't think of the name right now, but there was this one movie that I would see it being done in all the time. So I knew what it was, just from that perspective, not anything close to what I went through the process.
So when you decided that you wanted to try hypnosis, was that something that you were nervous about or apprehensive about?
I think the only thing that I questioned was just it where it lied with my religious beliefs, with my relationship with God. That was my only hesitant question before I began the journey. Was okay. How does this coincide with my religion? Is it okay? And right away, I got the feedback, and I was told, the that it was okay, and it assured me, after I saw it from the Bible's perspective of what's mentioned in there. I was okay with it. But other than that, I didn't have any questions to it or hesitance at all. I was desperate. I was desperate. Okay, let's do this.
Right. And when you started hypnosis and you experienced it for the first time, what was your impression of it? What did you feel about it? How did it
Um,
affect you?
it's it was very hard for me to describe it. I know my mom was quick to ask me like, okay, what was it like? What happened? You know, what did it feel like? It's you gave me a good definition of what it would be like, saying that it's like um when cement is getting better, you know, it takes time. It hardens through days. And
Mhm.
that's honestly how it felt from day one through the next 30 days and so on and so on. It just felt like um something that just changed in me without me even noticing that it was
Mhm.
changing. Just literally like something just came out, you know, stopped something that I stopped processing of how to do life stopped, and it was no longer options that I looked for.
Okay. And the did you see immediate results, or was it over a period of time?
Um, I want to say within the first, you know, first 2 weeks throughout the first month, it was it was just, you know, ongoing changes that I felt. Um, when, you know, in my case, when those moments of frustration and anger would happen, you know, because mom life continues and kids continue to be kids. And, you know, when those moments would happen, it no longer was something that would trigger in my mind to react in ways anymore. It wasn't, you know, lashing out in anger and screaming and, you know, this rage would no longer become the first thing I would do. You know, and I didn't feel like I was making myself not do it. Like, okay, I need to stop because this is what I'm working on. And, you know, unlike before, I would have to do that and take that moment to pause and think. It was just something that my brain just would no longer turn to do. You know, the lashing and the rage wouldn't be the first thing I would do. It was just handling the situations a different way, you know. So it was just like it just changed within, that it just wasn't an option anymore. It didn't feel like the right thing to do anymore. Like I could no longer do that, but not
Okay.
by force.
So was it almost like a a different? Did you feel like you were a different person in the way you
Yeah,
approached it or thought or that?
yeah. I honestly, that's how it felt. It felt like the ways I knew how to do things and was doing things, it just no longer was what I was doing. It just stopped, you know. And like I said, it wasn't like steps I was given, like, okay, when you get in that moment, you know, you have to do this and this and this. It was just I wouldn't anymore. I was able to handle it clear minded, you know, just see it for what it was, and you know, not being full of rage, because that was the main thing, that was the first thing that would I would turn to, that would I would become just a big fire rage person, you know, and lashing out on little kids, you know, when they're being kids, you know,
Right.
and understanding that it just wasn't the way I handled things anymore. It wasn't a part of me anymore. And you know, even up to now, you know, it's strengthened through time, but it just isn't the way I handle things. It just isn't a part of me anymore. And
Okay.
that's the best way to say it. It just isn't a part of me.
So how long did your kids notice? I know that one was younger. Uh, did your son notice a difference, and did how did he acclimate to you being different in the way that you reacted to things?
That's where it kind of it's a little bit more where I see the outcome of the way I handled things before, because I had to, in me being able to change the way I handled things, I got to see that a lot of those wrong ways were now his ways of handling things. You know, so that was the offset to everything. Um,
Interesting.
So it's like I saw all the quick changes and all these awesome things happening for me, but now I had to begin to reparent him and retrain his way, because the way he goes through things was the way I had stopped, and
Okay.
so that I noticed heavily, and not so much now, but when there is moments, it's like I know what he's doing is how I used to do it before,
Okay.
and so I did see that was a big struggle, and it's gotten a lot better, but it being something that he's, me to be telling him you can't be doing that, and I would still do those things. That was one thing. But now when I tell him, you can't act out that way, you can't speak to me, angry like that. He knows now she's telling me this and she doesn't do it anymore, and there's times where we've had those conversations. And I tell him, hey, I got the help I needed to. I don't do those things anymore, and he's 10 now, and he knows that. He knows mom got the help she needed. Mom isn't doing those things anymore. So this isn't how we handle things, and for him it is taking those steps to think about it and learn it and do it. But he now sees the example of she doesn't anymore. She stopped, she changed, she got the help, and that's just not how we handle things. So it's been an ongoing progress that, he's had to relearn, but based off of what he's now seeing me do or not do.
Now, do you find the way that you were reacting to things, is that a way that had grown up, and how your
Mm,
parents dealt with things, and it was, or how did you get to that point?
I not in my childhood. There was a lack of parenting there, but never did I see an example of, anger or rage, anything like that. I want to say it started to change more so when, from a past relationship, you know, um, I want to say it was about 3 years of living with somebody, and, having just my son and going through a very toxic relationship, and, very verbally abusive, emotionally abusive one, that it was a lot of protecting towards my son that I had to do. And because of all the constant arguing that was happening, and rage was given towards me, anger was given towards me through that person, it was just something that now was my instinct to do back afterwards. It was a lot of mental tormentation that they did towards me. So I felt that once that relationship was cut off, that was now how I was reacting towards things.
Okay.
And when, I would get in through those moments of, arguing with my toddler, I would get triggered back to those moments of arguing with an adult,
Right.
protecting myself. That's what was bringing it out.
Okay. Now, you speak of the past relationship. In that relationship, is that when you got into that relationship, was that a relationship that you knew that was going to be a short-term relationship, or did you have hopes for it to be a
It,
long-term?
when it got to the most toxic part was when I was forcing it to stay, when I was trying to keep this person there to make this happy little family for me and my son. That's that's when it got to that very tension filled part, was when I was trying to, stay there and not have to push that person out, knowing very well that it was not going to happen, that there was no end game here. Like it was me wanting to put myself in that situation, and that very bad situation, so it was a very forced time that, you know should have listened to mom, you know. It was honestly, that's what it was, you know.
Now, did you find that hypnosis helped you in that regard as well, and as terms of relationship that how a relationship should be and what you're going to put up with and
Yeah.
versus what you're not?
Yes, very, very much so. You know, I was given a lot of homework, and there was a lot of things that I had to put down on paper, you know, things that I hadn't really ever thought for myself, you know, what are my standards, you know, where's my worth? And I think that's something that I honestly had never reflected on and looked back on, to know my worth, to know what my standards are, and to know what, you know, what I value in myself, to know what I'm not going to put up with, because that's what I was always doing, was just putting up with things because that's what I thought I needed, you
Right.
know. And hypnosis did, you know, it allowed me to heal from a lot of things that I thought were for me, and weren't, you know. And I didn't forgive myself for those things, and just took it as, you know, just hating myself for it, and not letting it go, you know. So yeah, it did.
Interesting. So when you were going through hypnosis, did you find that you were looking at yourself on how you were treating yourself?
Yes. Yeah. A lot of self-reflecting. um I guess I spent a lot of time, you know, just punishing myself, and just not letting things go, just wanting to beat myself down. I allowed the happen, and it was just about being able to just let that go and just take it for the experience it was, because if I hadn't, you know, gone through those things, I wouldn't have, you know, yes, I wouldn't have wasted so much time going through all that, but at the same time, I wouldn't have known these standards and things that I know now about myself, and what to value, you know, in myself. Um, and it's a bittersweet thing to see in that, you know, because yes, it's wasted time. It's time that I put my son through. It's things that I put us through, but um, there was definitely a lot of learning and growing that came from it. And it wouldn't, I wouldn't be who I am right now if I hadn't not only gone through that, but have healed myself from that, you know. And that's just how I see it.
And were other people outside of your son, of course, did they see the changes in you?
Oh yes, you know, I'm very close to my mom, so you know, my mom saw a lot of the changes. A lot of, she was there when she saw me, you know, going through the anger part. She would tell me, you know, it was, I would have to go pick up the kids from her when I would get out of work all the time, and she says she would just get so, you know, tensed, you know, knowing that okay, I was about to get out of work, I was going to show up to her house. She didn't know what kind of attitude to expect, what kind of emotion
Right.
I was going to get home from. And she would just be nervous all the time for me to get there to pick up the kids, because she didn't know what Rose she was going to get, you know.
Right.
So she definitely has seen a lot of it, not only through me, but seeing the way they are now. She knows that there's changes in the home because she doesn't live here, but she knows there's changes because she sees the way they are when they go over, the way they are with each other, the way they speak to her. So it's a very noticeable thing, you know, not only through me, but through seeing it through them.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Uh, in relation to your son, did what you were going through earlier, did that affect his schoolwork?
Oh yes, it definitely did. When I was going through those hard times, he was only in kinder, and it was before, you know, the whole COVID thing had happened, and I it's always, it was a very hard time that he was going through. He started to, it was, we're going into the month of March, I remember, And all of a sudden, teacher started calling me to work and telling me, I could hear him screaming in the background. I could hear him acting out in the background. And it was like a switch had changed in him. And, she didn't understand what was going on. She would ask, is there problems at home? He's acting out. He doesn't want to sit down. He doesn't want to listen. He's picking on other kids. And it got to the point where every day of the week I was leaving work. I was rushing out of work to get to the school because he was in moments of rage and misbehavior, and we didn't know what was going on. And I myself was trying to not see it as my problems
Right.
that were the ones reflecting. I just wanted to see it as I don't know what's going on with him. I was in such a denial for, those, I want to say it was a whole month that we were going through that. And I remember when it got to the worst, I, I got a call from the teacher, and she was, I could just hear her running through the outside of the school. He had left the building and he was running and he was screaming and he was crying. And, he was telling them he didn't, all these scary things that, I don't, no mom wants to hear. And a
Right.
little 4-year-old was saying, that he didn't want to be alive. He didn't love himself, that nobody loved him, nobody cared about him. And, when it got to those scary moments, it's like I really saw the depth of everything I was putting him around, everything that he was around, not only me, but the situation I had him in, that relationship I was trying to force, all that was reflecting everything that I was allowing was just it was all showing through him, and it definitely showed a lot when that happened. And it's always going to be something that I remember, from that moment afterwards. It was just a lot of rebuilding in myself and trying to fix things from that point on, because it was like, okay, I don't want this anymore. I can't have this anymore. And that was his breaking point. And by the end of that year is when I got to my breaking point. And when that next year started, that's when I started hypnosis. Like that whole year of 2019 was just, it was horrible. It was just a lot of our relationship as son and a mother, it broke down. It had to be rebuilt. It was just like a moment of, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to fix this? So going into 2020, it was just like hypnosis just changed everything. It changed everything for me first. It changed my understanding of things. And it it changed. It's not like he went through the hypnosis, but he
Mhm.
he went through the hypnosis too.
Right.
He definitely did.
Right. So how long did you start seeing the changes in him after you started your process? Was it immediate, or was there a lag time behind it?
Mm,
And if so,
yeah,
how long?
definitely. I want to say, my changes were more immediate, and his changes, I want to say they took, like I said, it's still something we always have to tap into. Because they're kids, they're gonna have their growing moments, they're gonna have their moments of not understanding things, but um, it was, within the good year, I want to say it was a lot of rewiring of him and his mind and the way he does things and approaches things. Um, but I feel like throughout that whole year, it was just a lot of homework we had to do, a lot of, you know, just like a tower of blocks, a lot of rebuilding everything back up, to get it where we need it to be. But the foundation was definitely me, myself, and everything I had to work on in order to be able to be that example of all those changes towards him. Yeah.
That's great. So now fast forward to where you're at right now. How's he doing in school?
Oh, he's great. He's great. Um, he aside from that time that we went through, he's never had issues like that at school that have ever gotten scary, anything like that, other than just moments at home of, getting punished for not doing something or not wanting to do homework or, typical kid things. Um, we don't have problems like that. When there's moments of that, we get into an argument or something, which is usually off of homework, um, that's it the way we handle it, it's different. We know to take our steps back, to have those moments to, okay, we don't get to this point anymore. We walk away, we come back to it, and we go from there. It's not something that we handle just raging back and forth at each other anymore. I feel like we both have grown a lot to be able to know what we just don't do anymore. So he's great. He's learned a lot. He knows he's he's seen a lot. He's seen a lot of changes to know that, um, if mom can, I can. If mom doesn't do that anymore, I don't do that anymore. So yeah.
So what message would you offer to other people about hypnosis and your experience? How would you uh, recommend that to them?
I would say it's very easy to feel like you're alone in a lot of things. Like you have, it's your responsibility alone to have to just figure things out, you know? But through hypnosis, I've honestly been able to just see that there's so many layers underneath that we don't even consider being the problem that are those underlying problems, and even if we don't know or think it could be that, you know, I feel like through hypnosis, you end up discovering, you know what, I thought this was the problem and it's this, you know. It honestly just brings so many things to the surface without even trying, and not only do you discover what the problems are, but it just changes. It just changes without even having to. I don't want to make it sound easy, like you don't have to put no work into it, but
Mhm.
honestly, it changes things to. It is flawless like that, because that's how it felt like for me.
That's great. That's great. Well, I'm very proud of you for doing what you've done, because you did put all the work in. Uh,
Yes.
I'm just really happy with you, and because I've seen the changes in you and the dynamics in that firsthand, and
Yes.
it's been a wonderful thing to see and watch. So,
Yes.
all right, do you have anything else to add to anything that you'd like to anything else you'd like to
No, I,
share?
I think those I think that was real good. A lot of good stuff.
Okay.
Yes.
Now there's going to be people that when they see this are going to say, I want to talk to Rose. So they do you have an email or anything that people can reach out to you if they want to contact you and just kind of pick your
Yeah.
brain?
Yeah.
And what
You
would
want
that
me to
email
share it?
be?
It's gonna be my name. So it's gonna be ROSITACGUERRA at yahoo.com. So
Okay, and I'll
Rosita
put that in the
Siguera.
show notes as well.
Okay.
So, all right, excellent. Rose, thank you so much for
Of
sharing. I know
course.
we've been trying to do this for a bit of time, but I'm glad
Yes.
it finally took place. So, thank you so
Okay.
much.
Of course. Thank you, Mr. Wayne.
All right, we'll see you later.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.